Hello and welcome to the Purple Winds podcast, formerly known as the Swing State. I'm your host, Minna Jo, and I'm so excited to be here today.
Thank you to the listeners who have been tuning in for our episodes. And for the ones who've just joined the tribe, you'll find the podcast playlist tagged to the end of this video. So sit or walk, but relax and enjoy the conversation. Today's episode is with Shawn Mehta. Shawn has navigated multiple frontiers, from beginnings rooted in civil engineering and a MBA from London Business School in new venture finance, to leaps and bounds across clean tech, EV infrastructure, sustainability, and now leading mining innovation in Sudbury, Ontario, which is also referred to as the nickel capital of the world. Having worked across at least 3 distinct cultures, including India, Dubai, and Canada, and having immersed himself in both emerging and mature ecosystems, Shawn's insights are one part that we will explore in more detail in this conversation. But behind those transitions is a deeper story of adaptability, leadership under uncertainty, and personal growth, exactly the kind of stories Swing State exists to surface. So let's begin. Shawn, thanks so much for making time.
Thanks a lot, Minna, to invite me to your podcast. Really excited for the talk and really like the word tribe because this is what humans are like attracts like. And I think I really see you building up a great momentum having seen your past podcast. So thanks for giving me this opportunity to relay my story and my experiences to your audience, or I would say your tribe.
Thanks so much for those generous words. You and I go back far longer than this podcast, and we'll get into that a little bit and familiarize the listeners with our background together. But for now, let's focus on you. When you look back, what did you think you would become, and what early decision ended up shaping everything that followed?
I'm a civil engineer by qualification. That was my first step into the world. And I would say ever since I figured out a pattern that I love building. So in initial part of my professional career, I was building mega structures on a man-made island called Palm Jumeirah. I was part of the Atlantis construction management team, to building clean tech startup, to actually building a startup in smart mobility from ground up. So the common theme across different phases of my career have been building stuff, and I guess I've done that 0 to 1 loop several times. And I would say born in India, did fair amount of my education in India, but then I started my career in Middle East, in Dubai, as you said. And it's also very interesting the way Dubai has positioned itself. Where you said India, Dubai, and Canada, whereas I mean, I would say Dubai resonates like a country, all the 3 countries, UAE. But yeah, that's spent around 16 years in the Middle East before doing my immersion into the Canadian landscape. I've been in Canada since 2023. It's been an interesting journey, which we'll discuss.
We will indeed. Did you always want to become a civil engineer?
Well, in all honesty, I chose the location where I do my engineering versus the stream. Most of my early childhood has been in New Delhi. I wanted to go out and explore something which will help me discover myself, and that's how I chose the city where I did my undergrad, Chandigarh.
That it is quite interesting on different levels for me, actually, because I too decided on my stream of engineering based on the fact that I did not want to leave home. Where we did schooling is where I come from. I think majority of us graduates from India understand that, by the time we realize what it is that we really want to do, we're already in one stream of education or the other based on, peer pressure, family guidance from the uncles and aunts that hardly ever see us, but everybody has a say. So when you did realize that you were in civil engineering, what made you want to adapt?
Well, to look back and reflect upon it, I would say the whole experience depends on the cohort. Undergrad, is the first time you step out of your house. Till that time, you're usually with your parents, and once you step out, it's kind of a defining moment because you have that freedom to do what you want, and also have your own opinions, have your own thought process about day-to-day stuff. Those early interaction with with my fellow classmates was very important. Towards the end, I think I started admiring environmental engineering. That's a subsection under civil, and I drew a appreciation towards climate change, and that has led my future decisions. I did 4 years of engineering and then got recruited by a British company called Langerook as their graduate engineer trainee. And that point in time, there was a huge boom in the construction industry in Dubai, where there was a lot of requirement for civil engineers. I was recruited and put onto a graduate engineer training program, and then put onto construction management for the project I mentioned, Atlantis. After my 4 years at Langerook, I attended entrepreneurship school in Stanford. At that point in time, many people have heard the word entrepreneurship in India, and when the Lehman crisis occurred, I kind of realized that this is the opportunity to do something of your own. So I quit my job, relocated to New Delhi, and my co founder was based out of London, and we did a climate tech startup. So that actually drew my appreciation towards the sector and how big the sector was. A UN climate conference happened in Copenhagen, and that way there was a huge confidence that the world would gravitate towards net zero, and I would say rest is history. But then yes, there was a huge momentum of developing countries such as India and China cutting down on the emissions. Carbon was or is still treated as a commodity, so the thesis was to provide business intelligence around that. And this was 2010 and till around about 2015. The EV transition happened in 2016 when I got an opportunity to work for an incubator which was working on smart mobility and the four defining pillars, looking at connected aspects, autonomous aspects, shared aspects. So that was an interesting phase. I mean, we were early in the game, and I did that for almost 3.5 years before joining another startup, which was about setting up electric vehicle infrastructure.
Was there any personal value or a thought that always kept you grounded through your transitions? And I'll share mine really quickly. When I stepped out of engineering and went and started working in oil and gas in the middle of the desert in Egypt, the one thing that kept me grounded was that I probably would not get another opportunity to, be in such a unique position a second time, and that I should not give up before I feel that there is no other way that I can explore to make myself more comfortable. You also have been through the transition of changing geographies or the cultures that you operate in, as well as the industry. So you're kind of in a situation where you have to find words to translate your experience into the context that you're in now. And sometimes it is very exhausting. How did you keep yourself motivated? How did you keep yourself grounded in these circumstances?
That's an interesting question. In fact, I would say that whenever I'm doing a career transition, I always keep the why close to my heart. Like why I'm doing this. Like, okay, why I did my undergrad in place called Chandigarh, because small place, well planned, gives you a lot of I would say moving around. And why join Langerook? Because as a first job, you need to have a global experience, well established company gives you those best practices. So for those 4 years, I absorbed as much as I can, which were later useful in my startup days. So that why needs to be there all the time. And more than titles, you should chase purpose. So whenever you decide on something, you need to focus that your career will not be decided in days, months, or years, it will be decided in decades. So you have to give that time horizon to get that compounding effect kick in. If I reflect upon the EV transition, I observed that in the initial part of the century, and then the first decades, we were focused on cleaning the grids. So there was a lot of emphasis on clean energy. Then once that grid was clean enough, policy makers transition towards cleaning the roads, which essentially means deploying electric vehicles.
Thank you for sharing. When I worked in Egypt, the style to go to work there was very much communal. Part because we lived in a very remote setting, and so we didn't see anybody but each other, basically the crew that was on the well site. And so we would essentially work and function like a family for 7 weeks at a stretch, and then 3 weeks we'd not see each other. And our minds would reset every time we'd see a crew, not essentially the same faces, but just the fact that we were in a crew. In India, it was a significant change for me because now we were not remote anymore. People had their lives at the end of a 9 to 5. Even though I was back in my own country, it took me a little bit of adjusting to think that, okay, making friends here and making sure that I have a good time is going to be more dependent on me, and it's not something that's coming naturally by design. So I became more of a social butterfly, which intuitively I'm introverted. I enjoy social interaction, far and meaningful, but not frequent. And then from India to Canada, I had another cultural shock, which was that to be able to truly feel immersed and accepted and appreciated takes a lot of vulnerability. And so for the first few years, I think I dabbled with that. And I think at some places it made me a little bit more of an introvert. So now going back to you, when you moved from India to Dubai and then Dubai to Canada, what changes did you notice? What did you think you needed to carry with you? What was that intuitive sense of this is what I'm getting into and this is what it's going to demand of me?
I'm a very social person. I love hanging around with people, and I think what helped me connect was my drive to, go around the world. Like I've been to 26, 27 odd countries. And obviously, having started my career in Dubai, which is a huge melting pot, like we had 80 nationalities in the first project I worked in. And I somehow feel that it's very, very important to move out of your comfort zone, go outside to actually explore your identity and see who you are when it comes to the work culture between, uh, I would say, in between UAE and Canada. And interestingly, I started my Canadian journey with a small town of Sault Ste. Marie, which has a population of 75,000. It's on the border of Michigan and Ontario. So my experiences were different as compared to, I would say, majority of the Asian population, which tend to first settle in around the major hubs, namely Toronto, Calgary, or Vancouver. Ever since I've been in Canada, I've been in remote places. So I was in Sault Ste. Marie, now I'm in Sudbury. Sudbury is also like 100 is like I think one fourth the population of Brampton. If you look at that scale, I say this to a lot of my friends: colder the place, warmer the people. So I feel there's a lot of warmth in these cold places of Ontario, and I've seen like people are very they want to know what's happening in your life. So the first 15 minutes of your day is about how was your, a day before, what's happening with your family, which is also very similar to the way Dubai or Middle Eastern countries operate, where family is treated pretty, at the forefront. So the initial conversation will never be about business. It will always be about, okay, how's the well-being of your family. I found a lot of similarity between Dubai and this part of Canada. Can't comment about the major hubs. And I think the major hubs would be more similar to India, where you're like, okay, you start your day and you just hit the road running without having that icebreaker every morning. I think in Canada, there is this thing about small talks where these small talks are very necessary to ensure that the other person is comfortable, and usually that's how, I mean, I have seen things around me, and I've actually practiced it as well. Sometimes the context is different. In Canada is about which hockey team you follow.
I can definitely run with the thought that the colder the place, the warmer the people. I've had different flavors of let's just say the GTA and Southern Ontario belt that I've been in for the last about 8 or 9 years. In my experience, also when you're especially in a remote setting, or in a culture where they prioritize family over work, which is, it should be established and written in the books that in India we value and prioritize work over life, family, kids. But in most other places that I've been to, also there is a balance drawn between work and family, and you always want to know about the person that you're working with, because they are a person, they are unique, they are not a robot. They have feelings, they have experiences. Now in Sudbury, you're helping mining related startups find their footing, find the kind of resources that they need to create their MVPs or go to market or scale or whatever stage they might be. How do you feel, having moved from more the shoes of being a startup founder to somebody who's now mentoring other startup founders?
When I was a startup founder, I had someone to guide me, or guide us as a founding team. Uh, but whenever you are in a particular phase of a startup, if you have a mentor who's been through those cycles and through those pain points, then it really helps because you're not struggling too much on what the solution is. You're focusing more on execution and then trying to get that roadblock out of your way. And this has been an observation where a lot of the times people are, they want something where, and I would say, although startup journeys for founders are different, but at the same point, there are some patterns you can easily figure out. Let's say if they hit a plateau, or they are not able to go to market at a desirable scale, or a scale they want to achieve, or not hitting the metric. So you can recognize those patterns. In Sudbury, we're trying to do something which is quite unique because we have a testing facility, which is a mine. And I think we are one of the few regional innovation centers, or the innovation center which has a mine, an operating mine as a testing center where you can test and commercialize your technologies. My role here is scouting for technology companies who are at the leading edge and trying to disrupt the way things are done in this industry, try to make it more safe, try to make it more efficient, and also with the intervention of technology bring safety and environment to the game. Going back to the question, the role I'm playing right now is trying to, a lot of the time, I mean, helping them with connecting the dots, and I feel really humble at point, at certain instances where I see that most of the technology startup founders are PhDs, but then they are trying to, they're subject matter expert in their technology, but they are trying to make a business sense out of it. And that's where we come in. We help them commercialize their technology. We help them, go to market, and also try to help them with some sort of capital. So it's a very humbling experience.
I think humility comes to people who choose to realize that there is something much, much bigger than themselves. You learn to keep a patient, respectful approach, and I think people like those make better mentors. I do commend you for what you're doing, and I think you're doing it with the right frame of mind. So thank you, and I wish you continued success for your endeavors at Sudbury. Let's jump boats for a second for listeners who might still be with us. Shawn is a year senior to me from Punjab Engineering College, so we go back a few years. And I think my first impression of Shawn was always, meeting up with him meant light-hearted conversations, talking about anything under the sun, but leaving with a smile on my face. I distinctly remember that Shawn has always been a very warm and welcoming personality. And, even in the early days of joining a university, where back in my day, the seniors would stop you and ask you some questions just out of fun, or, what we used to call ragging back in the day is more controlled now. Shawn was a senior that I didn't feel uncomfortable in front of. So I don't know if I've shared that with you before, but you made me very comfortable from the first meeting that we had. And then we also had a little bit of an overlap where we were part of a extracurricular group where we focused on really ourselves. We were a group of young individuals that wanted to learn, that we set targets, we met on a regular basis. We would go out and participate in debates and share with each other what we learned. And I think that little group of maybe 10 people it was, I think we have special ties to one another, though we're like maybe significantly over a decade away from having graduated, and we're all in different parts of the world. On this lens of being a mentor and being able to work through people's patterns and helping them achieve their goals, how much of your legacy is being fulfilled, or your desire for your legacy is being fulfilled by your current activities?
When it comes to legacy, I would tie it to first principles, which would be good deeds or good karmas, which have influenced and impacted, I would say, people around him. So that's what I see, and I think keeping this why, reflecting on that, is keeping that why close to your heart is very important, to have your moral compass. I think one of the famous influencer also has this book, Start with the Why. I connect with that a lot. Sometimes you have to take those breaks and just try to reflect. I would say accomplishment, or the real feeling of success, is not while you're going fast, is but while you're going slow. Slow it down intentionally to ensure that you also uh, embrace that what you've achieved, and also I would say show your gratitude to the universe who has given you this much. So, and I would say once you have the first principles, or once you have these basics going for you, I think the legacy is an outcome of the way you do things, and that's how I perceive it.
It takes, I think, a lot of self awareness to come to the standpoint that something as important as what you want to be remembered for is an outcome of what you think, what you want, your why, and what you think can add value in this large cosmos that we are a part of. There are times in life where letting go and being more vulnerable and open to change and learning, and accepting of some failures in life can be far more rewarding and can open doors that you probably wouldn't see if you were in a more normal state of mind, maybe not going through these challenges. So thank you for sharing that perspective. What will be that key piece of advice that you would want a young professional starting out their career to be mindful of, to own, and to lead in their spaces?
I think the young generation right now, they are in a phenomenal phase where anything and everything is at your fingertips. I would say to the newer generation is believe in this concept of compounding. So you as a young person need to absorb as much as possible. So again, not going for titles but going for that learning early on in the career is super critical to shape your thinking. And I would say at the same point, you have to be you have to look at compounding, uh, I would say, your knowledge, compounding your health, and compounding your wealth. So not in the same order, I would say. So, knowledge, health, and wealth. Because essentially, life is not a sprint, but a marathon. And as people are having longer lives and people are working longer, so you have to ensure that you imbibe the right mental models early in your career, and that can be done with uh, like a lot of observation and also a lot of, I would say, going through those, I would say long days should be a norm. It may be controversial, but I would say while you can do it, you should definitely immerse yourself, because as you advance in your life, things may not be possible. You don't have that flexibility. So I would say looking at choices of electives, be very curious. Don't go for a set pattern, because this is your chance to reflect on certain topics which would not be very day to day as you progress further. So my, I would say, if I would say two words, I would say be curious and trust on the law of compounding.
And do your research, I would add to that.
And that's a, I mean, that's a very important. Don't, if two people don't answer you, just your curiosity should not stop there. I mean, when I say curious, have that, zeal of, going through different avenues, triangulating stuff, and ensuring that, your decisions are well researched. Great point.
Thank you, Shawn, for the conversation. Um, One that moved across systems, across ideas, across cultures, but remained rooted in the why. What stayed with me, like I said, was this idea of legacy is a product, and legacy is not something that should be front and center of your thought processing, and it's not the end goal, it is a product. What I also learned today is that learning in motion doesn't always come from a roadmap. Sometimes it's about having the courage to move first and then make sense of it later. To everyone listening, if you're at a pivot point, building something new, or simply wondering if you're behind, let this be a reminder. Careers aren't ladders. Don't chase titles, chase a purpose. Careers are landscape. And people like Shawn are proof that it's okay to move sideways, forward, or even pause, as long as you're learning. If this episode spoke directly to you, I'd love to hear what landed. Drop me a note, tag Swing State, share it with a friend, like and join the tribe. It might help somebody who's navigating their own transition in their career or in their life. Until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and keep moving.